All right, so are you ready to dive into a world of heroes and monsters and strategic battles?
Sound like fun.
We're talking about Epic7Arise today.
Oh, cool. The board game, right?
Yeah. The board game that brings the mobile RPG to life on your tabletop.
I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And we've got the rulebook right here, ready to go.
Nice.
Our mission, to equip you with all the knowledge you need to not just play this game, but to dominate it.
Dominate, huh? Sounds ambitious.
I know, right? We'll uncover those hidden strategies, break down those game-changing decisions.
Then crush our opponents.
Well, hopefully have some fun along the way, too.
Okay, I'm in. So where do we start?
Let's start with the basics.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I first unboxed this thing, I was a little intimidated.
Yeah, I can see why.
You got hero miniatures that are more like mini statues.
I've seen pictures. They look amazing.
They are. And then there are these gorgeous map tiles, stacks of cards.
A lot going on.
It's a visual feast, but it could be overwhelming.
So, where do you even begin?
Well, I think the components themselves offer a good starting point.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
You look at these incredible miniatures representing your heroes.
Right, and they're not just for show, right?
Nope. They represent those unique skills and backstories, the ones you'll use to navigate this pretty challenging map.
Which, by the way, you build as you play.
Exactly. You're not just plopping down a static board.
Oh, so it's like you're discovering the world as you go.
Exactly. You uncover tiles as you explore.
Okay, so that adds like a whole other layer of, suspense.
Oh, yeah. Definitely anticipation. And sometimes terror when you reveal a nasty monster lair.
Oh, I bet. So, does that make those hero choices even more important?
Oh, absolutely. You're not just picking your favorites. You're assembling a team.
Right.
You got to think. Do you want a balanced group? Maybe with a healer, a tank, and some heavy hitters.
Yeah, or do you go all in on a specific strategy?
Exactly. Maybe focus on maximizing attack power or something.
So those early choices have like ripple effects throughout the game.
I love that about this game. It's like choosing your class in an RPG.
Yeah.
Sets the tone for the whole adventure.
Makes you think long-term from the get-go.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that sense of consequence carries through everything, especially when you're in combat.
Okay, let's talk about combat.
Now, the first time I played, I thought it was going to be simple.
Just rolling some dice.
Yeah, attack, defend, rinse, and repeat. Boy, was I wrong.
So it's more complex than that.
Combat in Epic 7, Arise is a multi-layered beast.
Sounds intense.
You need to be thinking about the speed order of your heroes and your enemies.
Makes sense.
And how and when to activate those unique hero skills.
Okay, so you've got to time things right.
Yeah. And most importantly, how to manage your resources, like those skill point cards.
Yeah, those are important. I remember those tripping me up at first.
Yeah, me too. It's not just about playing the highest number.
Right.
It's about the combinations, the colors, figuring out how to activate those game-changing abilities.
It's like a puzzle almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it gets even more interesting with mechanics like dual attacks.
Oh, what's that?
That's where you can actually borrow a skill point card from another player.
Oh, that's cool, like to enhance your own attack.
Yeah, exactly. It forces you to think about teamwork.
But there's only one winner, right?
That's right. Cooperative, but cutthroat, which really captures the spirit of the original Epic 7, I think.
Interesting. So is it hard to master?
Well, the first time I tried a dual attack, I miscalculated and ended up wasting a perfectly good card.
Ouch.
There's definitely a learning curve.
But that's part of the fun, right? Figuring those synergies out, mastering those combos.
Totally. And then watching those plans come to fruition.
Or spectacularly fall apart.
Exactly. Speaking of spectacular, we can't forget about soul burns.
Soul burns. What are those?
This is where you really push your heroes to the limit.
Okay, tell me more.
Soul burns let you amplify those skill effects by spending soul tokens.
I see. So you're like sacrificing something to get a bigger effect.
Exactly. It's high risk, high reward. Can tune the tide of battle instantly.
Gotta be strategic about it.
Definitely. And speaking of strategy, I remember struggling with resource management in my first playthrough.
Yeah, it can be tough.
What are some common pitfalls players should watch out for?
I'd say hoarding is a big one.
Hoarding.
Yeah, those sky stones.
Oh, the primary currency?
Right. They feel so precious, you know? But sometimes investing early on in things like health potions
Makes sense.
or those crucial skill point cards, it can make a huge difference.
So it's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Short-term gains versus long-term investment.
And don't underestimate artifact cards either.
Oh, right. Those can be powerful.
They can. Significant advantages in combat and resource management, learning which ones synergize with your heroes and your strategy.
It's like finding the perfect tools for the job.
Exactly. Can be a real game changer.
But there's more to resource management than just spending wisely.
Right.
There's that whole friendship order thing. Yeah. Adds another layer of complexity.
Yeah, it does. Oh, yeah, the friendship order. It sounds all warm and fuzzy.
I know, right?
But it can be pretty cutthroat.
Deceptively strategic.
Yeah, it determines the turn order for a bunch of things.
Right.
Buying supplies, moving on the map, even how many soul points you can share during a dual attack.
So it's not just about, like, who's got the most friends at the table.
Nope. There's an actual in-game impact.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay, so the order. It constantly shifts based on the player's current scores and health.
So wait, the player doing the worst is at the top of the order.
Exactly. It's like a built-in catch-up mechanic.
So the game's giving a helping hand to the person falling behind.
Yep. And it forces you to think about your position in the order, you know?
So you can't just focus on maximizing your own score.
Right. You got to consider how your actions might affect your standing in the friendship order.
And whether that's going to help or hurt you in the long run. So you might actually want to avoid getting too far ahead, at least sometimes.
It's wild, right?
Yeah. The game's encouraging you to play strategically, not just greedily.
It's all about being mindful of the overall game state. It's not just you against the monsters, it's you against the other players.
And sometimes...
Even against the game itself.
Speaking of the game, let's talk about something else that kind of threw me off.
What's that?
Status effects.
Oh, yeah.
Increased damage, decreased speed.
All that fun stuff.
They can either make or break your strategy.
Knowing how to use them and how to counter them.
It's crucial.
For sure.
It's like playing chess, you know?
Oh, how sick.
Where the pieces can suddenly gain new powers.
Keeps you on your toes.
And all of this is happening on a map that's constantly evolving.
Right. It's not just about fighting.
No.
It's about positioning, movement, knowing when to engage, when to hold back.
Yeah. The map isn't just a backdrop.
It's an active part of the game.
Full of terrain that can help or hinder you.
Some tiles even have special rules or status effects.
I remember stumbling upon a tile that granted extra armor to all the monsters.
Oof. Not fun.
It's like the map itself is trying to outsmart you.
Which makes those strategic decisions even more important.
You can't just charge in blindly.
Exactly.
Got to consider your surroundings, anticipate those threats.
Make sure you're not leading your heroes into a trap.
It's like a game of wits against the game itself.
And all of this.
The combat, the resources, the friendship order.
It gets even more intense in campaign mode.
Campaign mode is where Epic7Arise really shines.
Okay, so what makes campaign mode so special?
Well, your progress carries over from one chapter to the next.
So like the equipment you acquire.
Yep, the skills you upgrade, the resources you gather.
It all has a lasting impact.
It's like building a legacy for your heroes.
They're not just starting fresh with each battle.
Nope, they're carrying the weight of their past victories and defeats.
Gives a whole new meaning to every decision.
Exactly. It's not just about winning individual battles. It's about crafting a story for your team.
Overcoming those setbacks and hopefully emerging victorious at the end.
And does the story actually change in campaign mode?
That's what I was wondering.
Oh, yeah. You get unique scenarios, special enemies you won't find anywhere else, and even branching paths.
Wow, so it's not just replaying the same battles with tougher monsters.
Nope. There's actual new content, different storylines.
Adds to the replayability, you know?
You could play the same campaign multiple times and have a completely different experience.
That's really cool.
And to help you face these challenges, campaign mode introduces equipment artifact cards.
Okay. What are those?
They grant permanent benefits to your heroes.
Like upgrades.
Yeah, you can customize their playstyles and build them into true powerhouses.
So it's like giving them those epic upgrades they need to face the big bad boss.
It adds a sense of progression, you know?
Watching your heroes grow stronger.
It's like they're leveling up in an RPG.
But it's not all about individual upgrades, right?
Of course not. There's still that element of teamwork.
Absolutely.
Shared fate.
The chapters in campaign mode are interconnected.
How so?
What you do in one chapter has a direct impact on the next.
Oh, I see.
A narrow victory might leave your heroes wounded and depleted.
Making the next challenge even tougher.
A crushing defeat might force you to make tough choices.
Like sacrificing resources?
Maybe even losing a hero permanently.
Whoa, the stakes are high.
It's not just about winning a single battle.
Right, it's about thinking long-term, planning ahead.
Understanding that every decision has consequences.
That's what makes campaign mode so captivating.
It's like you're writing an epic saga for your heroes, full of triumphs and tragedies.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. The core mechanics, the strategic twists, the grand narrative of campaign mode.
We have
But let's be honest, everyone listening wants to know the secret sauce.
the secret to winning.
Exactly. What are those key insights that separate the casual players from the champions?
Well, there's no magic formula for guaranteed victory.
I figured as much.
It takes skill, strategic thinking, and a bit of luck, of course.
Right, of course.
But there are definitely some approaches that can increase your chances of success.
All right, spill the tea. What are the secrets to mastering Epic7Arise?
First and foremost, you need to master the combat system. Understanding speed order, skill activation, resource management.
So it's not just about attacking blindly.
Yep.
It's about knowing when to strike, when to defend, when to unleash those soul burns.
Exactly.
Become a tactical mastermind.
Analyze the battlefield, predict your opponent's moves, adapt to those ever-changing situations.
Sounds like a lot to keep track of.
It is.
What are some common mistakes you see players making? Especially when it comes to resource management.
Overspending on big-ticket items early in the game is a common one.
Oh yeah, those powerful artifact cards.
They can be tempting, but sometimes it's better to invest in smaller, more consistent benefits.
Like health potions or skill point cards.
Exactly.
But wouldn't investing early in powerful artifact cards be a more strategic move for the long term?
It depends. They're useless if you don't survive the early game to use them.
Ah, I see your point.
Sometimes those small, consistent benefits keep your heroes in the fight long enough to build towards those powerful artifacts later.
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Immediate needs versus future goals.
And don't forget about the friendship order.
Right, that tricky thing.
Understanding how your actions affect your position in the order and how that might impact your future options.
It's another key to success.
Oh, for sure.
It's like you're playing a multi-dimensional game of chess,
I like that analogy.
where every move has ripple effects across the entire board.
Yeah. It's like you're constantly juggling, you know?
So many things to think about.
Your score, your resources, your position in that friendship order.
Not to mention those monsters lurking around every corner.
That's what keeps things interesting. It's a game that demands your full attention.
And your strategic thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And your ability to adapt on the fly.
Speaking of adapting, what about those status effects? We talked about them earlier.
Oh, right. Those can really mess things up if you're not careful.
Big time.
Knowing how to use them to your advantage, but also how to counter them when they're used against you.
It can be the difference between winning and losing.
Exactly.
It's like having a secret weapon, but one that can be used against you too.
You got to be aware of the different types, how they interact with each other, which heroes are most susceptible to them.
Adds a whole other layer of strategy.
Makes you think beyond just attack and defense.
Right. You got to exploit those weaknesses, anticipate those vulnerabilities.
And capitalize on every opportunity.
It's like a game of mental poker.
Trying to outmaneuver your opponents at every turn.
Yeah.
And don't forget about the map itself.
Oh, yeah. Those special tiles, the terrain.
All of that can be used to your advantage, if you know how.
It's like the environment is another player in the game.
Sometimes helping, sometimes hindering. A clever player will use the map to their advantage.
I've seen some people do some pretty crazy things.
Maneuvering heroes, funneling enemies into choke points.
Even using those special tiles to get an edge.
Exactly. It's about seeing the bigger picture, not just focusing on the immediate battle.
So much to think about. It sounds like mastering Epic7Arise is a journey in itself,
It is.
full of challenges and strategic decisions and those aha moments.
When you finally crack the code.
Exactly. It's a game that rewards dedication, patience, and a willingness to learn. So for anyone listening who's ready to start their own Epic7Arise adventure,
What advice would you give them?
don't be afraid to experiment. Try different hero combinations, different strategies, and don't get discouraged if you don't win every time.
It's about the journey, the learning process.
And those moments of triumph when you finally overcome a challenge.
Epic7Arise offers endless possibilities. The more you
Yeah.
play, the more you discover.
And you realize just how deep and rewarding the experience can be.
Well said.
I think we've given our listeners a lot to digest today.
I think so too.
If you love strategic board games, challenging gameplay, and the world of Epic 7, this game is definitely worth checking out.
Agreed.
And remember, every hero starts somewhere. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Epic7Arise. We'll see you next time for another adventure in knowledge and discovery.